Well, as the basketball announcer Marv Albert likes to say at the critical moment of a game or series, it's all come down to this. When exactly will the Fed begin, in the verb of the summer, to taper its bond buying? Well, today, investors sought clarity in the minutes from the Fed's July meeting. They didn't find it. The market's forensic scientists probed and prodded the meaning of words like patience and soon. But how soon is soon? How patient is patient when an economy's fate is at stake? All that was really clear is that Fed officials seem broadly united that the bond buying will end eventually, maybe by mid-2014, or not if the economy stumbles. The lack of definitiveness is why the Dow swooped, swooned, soared, and sank today, down 122 after the release of the minutes, then up by 17 briefly before closing down 105. The Dow finished below the 15,000 mark for the first time since July 30. It was the sixth straight losing session for that barometer. The Nasdaq lower by 13 points and the S&P 500 off by 9. Meanwhile, Treasury yields moved like the British boy band, one direction, up, constantly up, up to 2.9% on the 10-year bond. Now, with so much uncertainty about the markets and the Fed's tapering plans, the Fed has a lot on its plate, enough to make them head for the hills, which is what they did. Steve Liesman has our report from the big Fed conference in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Good evening from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where the Federal Reserve gathers every year for its economic retreat on monetary policy and the economy. And this year there is a high but an unprecedented level of uncertainty surrounding this meeting. Every 4 years they get together with uncertainty about who will be the Fed chairman. In 2009, it was whether President Obama would reappoint then Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke. And then 4 years before that, it was who would succeed Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan. Well, this year, it's who's going to replace Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke. And there's two leading candidates, Janet Yellen, the vice chairman now, and Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary, who was President Obama's economic advisor. Both have their pluses and minuses, and the leading candidate here thought to be Larry Summers. A big difference this year is the Fed chairman will not be attending. Neither will the head of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi. Other top Fed officials will be here, like Bill Dudley, the president of the New York Fed, Jim Bullard from St. Louis, and John Williams from San Francisco, along with Christine Lagarde, the head of the IMF, as well as really central bankers from around the world. Some of the big topics this year will be whether or not quantitative easing is working, and if it's not working, what the Federal Reserve should do instead. Also, is the Fed communication strategy adequate? The conference begins tomorrow night with a dinner, and then there'll be academic papers and discussion over the next 2 days. And I think one of the things I'll be listening for is whether or not the Federal Reserve believes the economy is strong enough for it to reduce its stimulus for the economy as soon as September, or whether or not that will happen later. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Steve Liesman.